I can't help thinking, somewhere in the universe, there has to be something better than man. Has to be. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ascension to 10.
All right, here we are. We're back.
We're back.
Man,
We're
this
back.
is like regularly timed. It's like we're starting to get into a rhythm. I mean, it's only been 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, well, you say that. I mean,
A
depending
micro
on how
summer
long
break.
how long it takes to get this out for recording in a decent time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well,
no guarantees.
Hey, yeah. Let's-
Yeah.
Yeah. We got.
But we're
we got
here.
This. We're here.
We're here.
We're here. We made it. I'm wearing this fantastic hat that I got. We were camping in Iowa and went back to my alma mater of Luther College. And we're the Norse, so, had to get this Norse hat. It's actually for our son, but I figured it fits my head, so might as well wear it.
I figured.
So, looks
That's
nice.
what your mascot is? It's just the Norse?
Yeah. Yep, the Norse.
The Norse.
Yep. The choir is the Norsemen.
Okay.
The women are the Norse. They are also
Let's go.
represented by a man.
Let's go. What about the swim team? Is that the Norsemen as well?
Norse, because there's men
Norse.
and women. Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
But that was.
Well, wait a minute. The choir must have been co-ed, surely.
No, there's a Norseman choir, which is like
Oh.
the all men's choir, and then the women's was Pika Kor. Some Nordic words.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But
Let's go.
as part of the trip, we have to leave our cats. So now we have 2 cats. We have Bo, which is the one we've had a long time, the one that got out, blah, blah, blah. And then we have June, who's our new cat. Well, Bo has decided that he's going to break out of our yard because we used to just let him outside. Now he breaks out and just travels the neighborhood. And then he just shows back up at our front step. Well, since we left, we can't do that, right? So we have someone come watch him, but he has to stay inside. So now it's, a great tradition that every time we go on vacation, the number of days we are gone, the number of shits he takes in the basement. So we were gone 4 days. So there are 4 piles of shit in the basement. If we're gone for a week, there's 7 shits. So now my entire life is, depending on how long we're gone, Bo takes that number of shits in our basement. and he does it in a way where he just goes down the line along the wall. Like he starts closest to the stairs and just works his way around. So then our basement is just turd bombs. We just have just poop everywhere. And I'm just waiting for this stupid cat to die.
Oh, no.
I'm very honest with you because he ruins everything. I can't go anywhere because he poops all over. Who knows? He probably peed all over too. But it's like now he gets out all the time. We're going to lose him. And then it's going to be just like last time. It's going to take 4 fucking days to go find him, even though we have, the collar to find him and all that stuff. But it's just so annoying. But what it reminds me of is when we were at Valley Springs Elementary. And Valley Springs Elementary is this old schoolhouse. Was like 4 stories. There's no elevator. It was one of those places where like you had the radiator heater. We had to put a coffee can with water on to get any humidity in the winter.
Yep.
And the neighbor farmer, every once in a while, his cows would get out and they would just take dumps all over the playground. And then we would have to play around cow pies for like 2 weeks. Like no one cleaned it. It's just like, oh, the cows took a shit. And then here we are. There's like 5 and 6-year-olds like running around outside, just dodging cow pies. So my basement is basically what I remember as, cows just pooping it on the playground. So
he just wants you guys to be home. He just wants his people.
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Poor guy. That's frustrating.
He probably live forever. This is just.
Cats live like 20 years, right?
Yeah, and he's a mutt, so he probably just lived 30 years.
He's been genetically selected for survival.
He's been genetically perfected. But
he is the apex.
Just thought I would the apex cat. But
I mean, he's clearly asserting his dominance.
Poop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess.
So I don't think I mentioned this, but you bring up Valley Springs, and last time I was back in South Dakota, my mom and I went and drove out there, and we just kind of looked around Valley and stuff, and looked around just drove around and looked at the VFW where we went and had Cub Scouts and that school, man. It's exactly the same, except they have a digital kind of school ID placard up on the wall on the outside, and it looks just completely out of place. But yeah, those cows, they would come in the gym was just this metal box, right? That was detached from the school building.
Yeah.
And no fans, no ventilation. So the ventilation was opening the doors at either end of and so cows would wander in, and snakes and shit because it was just out in a field essentially. And all of our playground equipment or half of it seemed to be on just the asphalt parking lot for some reason.
Well, yeah, isn't it all of it now on asphalt? Yeah, is it all of it on asphalt now? Well, maybe not anymore.
It's all on those little wood chips.
The old
on mulch.
Remember the old part, which had like the little rocks, so if you fell, you'd get rocks.
Yeah. So it was either it was either asphalt, you fell on asphalt, or you fell on rocks, and then that was that's what we had to work with, or we had a giant field full of cow shit that we could run around.
Kids don't know how good they have it nowadays.
No AC at all.
No.
And I remember wearing coats inside class in the winter because on the days that the heat just didn't work.
Yeah.
What a place.
It was just a heck of a place. I mean, memories. The
Do you remember,
classrooms though were really big. I remember that.
Yeah, super tall ceilings too, right?
Yeah. Like when you were in 5th grade, it was like these rooms were like 3 rooms.
Yeah.
Like for classroom. It was huge.
Each floor was the grade, right? So the top floor was 5th grade. And do you remember that tiny little office? So there's the stairwell that ran up, right? And then there's the 5th floor or 4th floor. And then there's the tiny little office off of the final landing. And it was for the guidance counselor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was just way up there in this little like bird's nest.
Just
crow's nest.
Well, I think it was each like because like it was the half floor, right? So it would go up, and then you'd have to come.
Yeah.
So the guidance counselor was a half floor up, and as you went halfway down, I think there was another office or room. So each time you go down.
Yeah.
I remember I used to get migraines. I remember I slept in one of those rooms for like half a day because I had migraines.
Oh, I don't remember those half rooms actually, or the half floors. I just remember the guidance counselor being on this weird little.
I think
bonus.
Going down. It sounds like we need to trip back. I mean,
are they going to tear it down? Aren't they? Or they're decommissioning it or something? Or
I don't think it's.
I don't think it's going to be another
time capsule.
I don't know, but we better storm the gates.
Yeah, we
if
better
that thing gets lost to time.
We better go get that. I wonder if anybody put some reeds in there or something sweet.
Man.
Oh, when you were in Valley Springs, did you go by the gas station?
The pit stop?
Pit stop. The race car.
Yeah, we drove by it. Yeah. Man.
I love that.
That place is pretty interesting.
Were you in our Cub Scouts when we went around Valley Springs collecting canned food? It was part of the food drive that we did. And we went through Valley Springs knocking on doors. I mean, we're all like 8 years old and asking for canned, vegetables and food and soups and everything. I will never forget that the one time there was this old guy sitting outside and we're like, hey, we're from the Cub Scouts. We're trying to get donations. And the guy's like, just go inside and get some. And we're like, what? Okay. And we go to his door to go inside as he's sitting in the driveway and he goes, I said, get out of here. And then yells at us and we're like, what? And then we just walked away. We ended up like with 4 cans. Like no one answered the doors. So, but that was Valley Springs.
Oh man. That place really sucks.
There's new houses there now.
Yeah, but have you seen where they are? They're like next to an active barnyard. And I'm not kidding.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So nothing has changed. There's just a couple new houses there.
Yeah.
Actually, okay, because we drove through that little development too. And so yeah, it does look like just a few rows of brand new houses that you'd find in the Midwest or in the Sioux Falls area. If you have any idea what I'm talking about, it's just all the same, right?
Yeah.
And we were driving through. This is just a weekday, and there is just a kid, maybe 7, I'm gonna guess, just out in the driveway. Shirt, no socks, shorts, no socks or shoes or a shirt. And he's standing out there with a hose and he's just hosing. He's just like holding the hose and it's just going into the street. The image of that.
You realize you're talking about my childhood, right? You just encapsulated my childhood.
That's so good. Well, you lived out in the country. What streets were you wandering?
Well, I was. I guess technically it's not quite the same, but I literally had a hose running half the day, making rivers in my sandbox. No
okay,
shirt.
I remember that. Yeah. I remember that. But this
well,
kid was out there fucking alone. Driveway in the street.
Hey, at least he was outside. Good for him.
Holy smokes. I do remember making rivers in your sandbox. Which,
oh man, that's my favorite.
It's fitting because the cats back then would just use that as a shit box. Your whole life has just been in cat shit, dude.
I can't get away from it.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
I just had a flashback to that sand area because it was underneath and extended. Half of it was underneath some kind of like prefab treehouse thing, right?
It was right next to it, but yes.
Right next. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that part of your yard, that part of your yard had at one point that gigantic satellite dish, right?
Well, no, that area, it was in the other corner. But yes, we had a giant satellite dish. Yes.
But then, so I'm associating those two things then with your trampoline, and your trampoline was kind of strange, right? Because there were these triangle wedges of
it was like a baseball field. It was it was like
intentionally?
Rubber. It was like, well, I don't know if it was intentional, but it was at the corners, and it was like rubber, and the rest of it was all like whatever the
mesh
is, that
thing,
mesh
right?
netting that normally is. Yeah, we had that trampoline forever, and I mean, there was no maintenance done to that. I mean, that thing lasted for 15 years.
Isn't that amazing?
Sitting out in the winter and just slowly rusting away. It was awesome.
I know those springs, for some reason, didn't. The fact that they weren't just immediately rust, right?
Right.
And that they had any kind of springiness to them after the first season. I remember there was one winter where our trampoline got, I don't know, a couple inches worth of ice on top of that because we just didn't take it down, right? Mm-hmm. And that couldn't stand for me anyways, for some reason. And one random weekend I went out there with a hoe and started picking at the ice, and sure enough, put a giant hole in the trampoline. Of course. Exactly is what you might expect. It's not like I was going to use the trampoline out there. I just needed the ice to not be there for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, your logic was sound. It's kind of like one time I decided that I was going to play guns I wanted to get up high. So I got on top of my dad's hood and just drug my guns all the way up to the roof. And so the hood just scrapes all over it because I was dragging my guns up on top. Oh, had to get it repainted because I was just dragging metal guns all over it.
Gotta get perched up.
Gotta get high.
Oh man,
Charlie's in the trees. But
did you guys put the sprinkler underneath the trampoline ever? Well, you guys had a pool, so you didn't really need to do that, but you did that too.
Sprinkler on the trampolines. That's a classic.
Okay, that's
fun. Yeah.
I was always like a surrogate for a pool, kind of a water day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Splash around, water, run around.
It's awesome. You do some jumping around and then slip, get some water on you. Yeah. Man, trampolines, underrated. Everyone should have a trampoline. They're so much fun.
Yeah, they're pretty baller. I remember there was a trampoline. Actually, do you remember at the Uncrustables party that we talked about many episodes ago, where we're at Bryan's Lake and we go to the creator of the Uncrustable, because they were having a party there and we assumed that there were going to be Uncrustables at hand, and there were no Uncrustables, but there was a trampoline. And I remember getting on that night. Which,
it was a big trampoline.
Yeah.
Wasn't it a big square one? Or some, maybe not.
I don't remember that.
I remember it being big. Because we were adults on it, right?
Yeah. So. After an Uncrustable party, which, you can imagine what happens at those, man.
Yeah. Yeah, buddy.
Anyways.
That was great.
Wow, that was pretty good. Man. Kid with
we went to
hose.
A lot of places.
Yeah.
At least we started at Catch It and ended at Catch It, basically.
Cat shit to cat shit. So I wanted to tell a story.
Yeah.
I was traveling for work earlier this month or last month. And I, from the airport to where I was staying, took an Uber or Lyft or who cares, whatever. And on the trip, I was reminded of the fact that I was potentially one of the first people to do this kind of rideshare offer it as a service way back in 2006, I think. And I'm thinking it was after we graduated high school, because I was allowed to drive to Sioux Falls by myself. And I had some kind of minimal curfew or something, or maximum curfew, something like that. But I had agreed to pick up my older sister from Borrowed Bucks Roadhouse on this one particular night.
Oh, yeah.
And this was before smartphones. I had a cell phone. We both had cell phones, but all we could do was text, right? Back in the good old days. And
was it the Nokia or the flip phone?
It was a flip phone, but it was one of those first ones with a camera on it. But it still had the antenna that you had to like.
Oh, yeah. That's where T9. That's where it all started, man.
Oh yeah. And my sister said, I'll be ready to go at whatever time it was. It couldn't have been too late. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go out there. And so I get there on time. I'm waiting. Nothing. And it's not like she's texting me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting out in front of Borrowed Bucks in the Lumina. And
Borrowed Bucks.
pretty soon, a couple must have been college age guys knock on the window, and they said, "Hey, you waiting for somebody?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, can you give us a ride home? We'll pay you." And so I thought, okay. So I did. And I drove them home somewhere in Sioux Falls. This is before maps, right? I had just had to rely on them to tell me where to take them. So I take them, and they paid me $20, and I get back now to Borrowed Bucks, still nothing from my sister, radio silence, crickets. And yet another couple come up and knock on my window asking me to take them home. So I took them home. And that happened one more time. I did 3 trips from people randomly knocking on my window while I waited for my sister. And I made a decent amount of money that night.
I bet.
And eventually my sister came out, and it was just so, I can't believe I forgot about that, but it's just insanity. And think about if you're a guy stumbling out of a bar and you see a fucking child in a car by himself.
A child.
Yeah.
Hey, can you give me a
hey,
ride?
can you give us a ride home? Just how bizarre that scenario is.
That's awesome.
So anyways, I kind of invented the whole Uber situation, and I didn't even know it.
That's impressive. I
time.
didn't even know. I mean, if you would have started it, back then when you could just send a text to get a pickup, man.
Yeah.
You'd be a gazillionaire, but
blew it.
Fucking blew it.
Frickin' blew it. But anyways, that was a nice little memory that stirred up.
Yeah, that's funny.
And
did you finally get your sister, or?
Yeah. After I came back from the third trip.
3 trips.
Yeah.
Your sister never came out. So like 3 hours later.
I know exactly. What was I supposed to do? Just wait there the whole time? Oh man.
Awesome.
I mean, what a perfect vehicle to do rideshare in. Chevy Lumina from 1997, right?
And technically, you could fit 5 people in there, including 6 with the driver.
6 people. So. We've done it.
Yeah,
many times.
I'm surprised you haven't picked one of those up.
Well, my car is still at my parents', so as soon as they get that thing fixed up,
get that thing purring.
Yeah, get that thing purring. Then I might have some negotiating to do. It's a sweet car. I love that thing.
Well, speaking of sweet cars, I think we should talk about this movie.
Why not?
Army of Darkness from 1993.
I watched Evil Dead, Spenny.
What?
watched Evil Dead.
We're watching Army of Darkness.
No.
That's what I watched.
I watched Evil Dead, which is I think the first
prequel.
of the yeah.
Oh, great.
Well, okay. Okay. That's why I was curious when you said there's nothing about this movie because it's so famous. Well, okay. How about we can each give a little synopsis of these movies then.
I've always waited. This comes back to the first time we did our podcast, because I watched Tremors and you watched Tremors 6.
I forgot about that.
Before we recorded, I scrambled and watched Tremors 6.
Oh yeah.
We talked about Tremors.
Was that the Lost Pilot that we had to scrub?
Yeah, that's the Lost Pilot with the click.
We should always. Okay. This actually reminds me. Short aside before we get into the movies.
the movies. Can't wait.
We're gonna do a little plug here for our Patreon, which we haven't done in a minute. You can support us on Patreon. I think we have a Patreon, right, Spenny?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we still have a Patreon.
So at the moment, that gives you nothing.
Yeah.
You get no perks for contributing. We very much appreciate it.
We're gonna build improvements. It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. It's all in the books. Perhaps as a reward, a tier 1 reward, we'll send you that Lost Pilot. We'll make it available only to the Patreon supporters.
Or JAD will do the F1 vlog.
That was coming, and actually, it's getting around that time. I think it's in a couple weeks where that happens again. So maybe I can release a whole special here and just title it 2023.
Guys won't know the difference.
F1 at Texas, and we'll get some clicks that way. So that could be a Patreon reward. Now, this idea comes from a longtime listener, supporter, Samantha. She had just listened to the Velocipaster episode, and her idea was we could make a one of our tiers of Patreon support be $11,000. And if you reach that tier, your reward is we'll make an $11,000 movie. So get that thing in the works,
okay. Let me
tier 1, $5 or whatever it is.
Notes here.
Tier 2, $11,000. Tier 1, you get nothing. Tier 2, you get a whole movie made just for you.
Tier 2, $11,000. Tier 1, $10,999.
Yes. And at that rate, you'll get a lost, unaired pilot episode that's so unlistenable that we couldn't even edit it.
I'm still curious how, if that was any good. I mean, we haven't listened back. I'm sure we have it somewhere, but
yeah, it must be somewhere, right?
We must have the source files, because I think we put it on. We have a Google Drive that we use, right, for the podcast. But
yeah, and I think that we re-recorded the entire thing, right, as to the best of our ability, and we made an episode out of it, right? So
yeah.
It must have been somewhat decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we could do it a second time. At any rate, that was an idea that I thought was a pretty good one. So we're going to work on our Patreon.
We'll do that.
That tiers and rewards for those that support. Anyways, moving on to a conundrum here that, to Spenny's point, I had also been waiting for this to happen. This is our 51st iteration of these
we finally
shows.
Watched the wrong. So I looked this up while you were talking. I sent you Army of Darkness, and that was the recommendation. But I will admit that at the end of the episode, we talked about Evil Dead, this is part of it.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was thinking Army of Darkness.
So the funny thing
did you watch the first one?
Yeah, I watched the original Evil Dead, the verse in the
is
series
that
or something.
Bruce Campbell? in the first one? Okay.
Yes.
Now, okay.
So the funny thing is, I was watching Evil Dead thinking that I had seen that movie.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for one of the more famous things from this franchise is of him having a chainsaw for a hand.
Yes.
I'm waiting for this. Never happens.
What I watched.
It never happens. And I thought, I've never seen this. Did I watch the right movie? And then I was like looking through Amazon, and it turns out that Army of Darkness was the one I was going to text you. We should watch Army of Darkness instead, but I didn't. And so here we are.
But I sent a message yesterday, and we both watched these yesterday, and I said to our third party, Bryan, hoping he would come on, saying, hey, we're watching Army of Darkness.
Did you? Let me see here.
Yeah.
Let me see. 8 to 10 group chat.
Anyways,
no, we're gonna have to see here.
This is great because isn't there? There's there's three. there's three of these. So it was Evil Dead, and then is it Evil Dead 2?
Fuck, you're right. God damn it.
Okay, Jad.
All right.
Since we've messed this up,
the
first time, give us the backstory on Evil Dead, and then I will transfer to what happens after.
Okay. All right. All right. Evil Dead. Now, see, I remember the movie. I remember, which was Army of Darkness. I remember it being a funny horror movie, super over the top, super campy. And the whole time I'm watching Evil Dead, and Sarah was watching it too, she was starting to get a little spooked, because at no point was it overtly funny that I remember it being.
This is so awesome.
But here it goes. Okay. 5 friends rent a cabin. And right away I'm thinking, this movie was from 1981. How easy was it back then to just go rent a cabin in the middle of the woods like it is today? They must have had some kind of...
They had to have a connection or something.
Yeah, but they did all the same things. They get there, they're like, oh, the key is supposed to be here, right? Just like the lockbox or whatever it is on an Airbnb. So it's just oddly similar to how life works today. And maybe that shouldn't be so surprising, but considering the piece of shit car that they were driving and all the just the nonsense and the clothes and everything, that just stood out to me as just bizarre how similar the whole thing was. But okay, so the opening shot is them driving to this cabin, and they're on some kind of back highway entering the woods and stuff. And the weird thing is that the guy who's driving wasn't the owner of the car. The owner of the car was Ash, or Ashley, which is the only recurring character in all these movies. And he's sitting in the back seat, and he's navigating by looking at just a magazine. It's just a magazine of a kind of a mountain road that just does this.
Yeah.
There's no other roads. And the driver's like, hey, where are we? And he's back there doing this, well, we just crossed Tennessee, so that would mean we're like here or something. And it's completely useless. And then this whole time there's this camera movement through the woods, and it's all fast and spooky and scary and stuff. And it overlooks this part of the road where the car comes. And then this whole time also there's this oncoming truck that's on the same road. And this evil spirit or something that is lurking in the woods does some kind of voodoo action and takes control of the wheel of the car. And the guy that's driving is just so ridiculous. He's like, hey, what's this piece of shit car doing? Like the spirit kind of tries to drive the car into the truck, but then they regain control or something. But the Ash somehow he's like, whoa, they're all doing the whoa, whoa kind of thing. And but Ash's head from the back seat comes from outside the window to be next to the driver's head while they're screaming or something. And so right away, it looks like it was going to be super funny and super campy and stuff, but then it just completely went away from that after that shot. So they get to this cabin. It's super creepy. It's there's just constant fog and mist and like smoke billowing everywhere. And the film is super grainy and stuff. And they're all just kind of like, what if it's a dump? And they're all, Ash said, well, it might not be. So it turns out,
sounds like Ash.
It turns out it is a complete ass shit dump. And
been abandoned for years.
Completely abandoned. Yeah. But yet they decide to stay. And it's a few different groups. I think it's Ash and his girlfriend. I think Ash's sister, and then Ash's friend, he's kind of like a douchey jock, and then his girlfriend or something. I don't know. It's 5 of them staying there. They're all friends. But the odd person out is Ash's sister, or this other woman that's just kind of without a partner. And she's right away just kind of drawing this clock that's on the wall.
Yeah.
The clock says like 9 minutes to 6 in the evening or something. It's pitch black outside and it's like not even 6 o'clock. Right.
Yeah.
And they just got there in the full daylight. And I don't know. She starts drawing this clock, and it's this amazing sketch. And then this kind of wind comes in through the window, and then her hand is possessed, and she starts drawing, and it draws a book, but it's now clearly the actress drawing with a fist and stuff, and it looks as shitty as you might think. It's barely a rectangle,
right?
And then there's this trap door in the floor to the cellar that's like banging open, and it's bangs open by itself. And some voices say something to her, and then it closes. And then she's like, huh, that's potentially kind of strange. And then next scene, they're just eating dinner together, and they're eating out of glass bowls and stuff. They make this big side salad and this huge crystal platter. But then they drink out of paper cups, and the set design was just so, I don't know, just so weird. And Ash stands up to make a toast. Completely, the dialogue in this movie was non-existent from a sound perspective, and it's just like him mumbling.
I can tell you why. I can tell you why. So when they were filming, I think in all 3 of these movies, but one of the tidbits that I did see is, when they were filming, the way that things were like laid out, they had to have the boom mics really far back.
Okay.
Because they couldn't do them overhead. I think of how the set was. So that's why it sounded so.
Oh, interesting.
Because that was a common theme throughout all 3 movies.
They didn't learn from the first one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so they're all eating. The trapdoor opens again by itself, and they're like, huh? And the jock kind of goes down there, and he's taking a while, and they're all kind of like, come back, where are you? Where are you? Where? This place, this hut is tiny.
Yeah.
They go down to the cellar, and it's expansive, massive rooms, hallways, stone corridors. And Ash goes down there after him with the lantern, and then he's just kind of dicking around down there, and they find this book and these scepters of whatever. So it's this Book of the Dead, and this tape recorder. They bring it upstairs, and the tape recorder is of this like history professor or language professor or something that's been studying ancient ruins, and he's finally cracked the code and finds that turns out there is this Book of the Dead, and that it can resurrect evil spirits if and only if it's read aloud, right? And so while they have the book sitting there, they're just listening to this homie read the book from this tape recorder. And so that's sufficient, I guess, to erase the dead.
Awaken the spirits.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
And so they're all sufficiently kind of creeped out, but not really. And then they all go to bed, right? Mm-hmm. And then the sister gets called into the forest, essentially, and she goes out there completely alone. And there's this really weird scene where like the trees start sexually assaulting her. And they tie her up, they pin her down, and then this tree branch starts. It's super bizarre, but she escapes.
She escapes.
Yeah, she escapes, runs back to the house, fully, cut up, and her clothes are torn up and stuff, and the door's locked or something, and she bangs and she gets in because this creeping thing is coming up behind her, and the douche jock this whole time is like, you're crazy. I don't know what you're doing out there. Despite the fact that she's clearly been assaulted by at least something, right?
Yeah.
And she says, go to bed. And so she goes to bed or something. I don't know. Something happens. And then all of a sudden she's a zombie and she's speaking for the dead.
Oh, yeah.
And they lock her up
some...
in the cellar or something. Mm-hmm. And the makeup now is next level because it's basically just some clay on their faces when they turn into zombies. Right,
gives them big brows and stuff.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so she's speaking in tongues now, and saying that basically she's part of the dead and whatever. So they chain her up and lock her in the cellar. And then they're all like, "All right, bedtime." So they all go to bed.
She's just down there.
A fucking zombie. Ash's sister, I guess, is completely different and possessed, and he's just like, all right, let's go to bed.
Get some rest.
Yep.
We'll deal with this tomorrow. That's a tomorrow problem.
Yep. And then so it's basically systematically one by one that they turn into zombies and stuff, and Ash is the sole survivor, and this fucking thing drags out way too long.
Wow.
And there are death scenes of these zombies that are minutes long, and it's just the zombies screaming. And it's just so fucking long. At one point,
is it how long?
The douche's,
I'm gonna look it up.
The douche's girlfriend is just in the bedroom, right, alone, because it's we're going to bed now, and a spirit breaks the window, and you hear her scream, and the boyfriend hears this clearly happening from the living room. He looks over to Ash. He's like, keep in mind, one of their friends just turned into a fucking zombie, right? And is completely grotesquely wrong. And they locked her in the cellar. And he hears his girlfriend from the next room, like, bah! And he's like, huh? What could that be? And so he's walking into the room. She's fucking gone, right? And he's like looking around, huh? Something's different around here. And then this scene is so long. It just drags out of this idiot just looking around this room. And sure enough, she comes out from some corner or something, and she's a zombie now too, and is attacking him. And then he freaks out and axes her to pieces. And then they bury her in the yard. And
good
so
Lord.
At some point, at points they literally throw buckets of blood onto Ash, and he's either completely dry or he's covered in blood. And any scene following him getting drenched, he's completely dry again. No evidence of the blood at all.
Minor issues. Yeah.
And the movie ends with he finally makes it to dawn. Everybody's dead. And there was, I guess, at some point, like if they could make it to the day, they're good. And so it's daylight now, and Ash is, who cares? I don't know. He solves the problems for something because he burns the Book of the Dead. And then, and yet the last scene of the movie is this creeping camera shot again, rushes up behind him, and he turns around and is like in his face, and he looks scared, and then that's the movie. And so at no point in time was his hand a chainsaw. And I was just so confused by all of this. So I looked up. So I was browsing through the other movies, Evil Dead 2, and I watched the trailer.
Yeah.
And the trailer is Ash goes to a creepy cabin with some friends, with a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And turns out there's this book that he finds called the Book of the Dead. And there's a tape recorder made by a language professor.
Archaeologist again, or whatever it is, yeah.
And he's looking at this book like, this is kind of strange. So am I to believe that this sequel, Evil Dead 2, is actually a remake?
It's almost exactly the same thing. The only difference is it's just two of them. He goes with his girlfriend that he's loved. Because I got it. You get a review in the movie I watched at the beginning of what happened in the second one.
In the second one, not the first one.
Not the first one.
Okay,
no idea
well, it's the same, I guess.
Yeah. But his girlfriend gets killed, and the spirit is starting to get in his hand, and he's starting to get like evil in it. So he saws it off with a chainsaw to get rid of it. But then ultimately he survives, but then it's still pissed off. So he is time portaled to the Middle Ages, which is Army of Darkness, with his chainsaw and his car and his shotgun. And it leads into Army of Darkness. How those are connected.
Okay.
It makes way less sense. Because I was watching that one, I was like, okay, so it's like he just got transported after the first one, but that was the second one, so there was a first one.
Why call it Evil Dead 2 if it's the same director, same actor, same plot? It's just slightly different.
I will say that the budget for Evil Dead was like $350,000 to make.
Okay.
Army of Darkness was $13 million. So there was a big jump in the budget.
Wow.
So that alone.
Wow.
Worth it.
Well, so here's the one thing that I remember from the movie I thought I had watched, or the movie that I watched that I thought was Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Was Ash with a chainsaw hand, but then also he is just some clerk at a sporting goods store or something, and then all of a sudden some zombies start crashing the party.
Yeah. So the whole premise of this is he is a stock boy from an S-Mart.
Okay.
And so in the second one, I think he gets sucked into the time portal and he gets transported to medieval England. And there, like, he is spending his time, like, basically finding the fucking Book of the Dead again. Like, he doesn't know what this is, but it's called by a different name. And this time instead of a tape recorder, because it's 1300 or whatever, 1300 AD, he messes up the words he's supposed to say, and it brings the Army of Darkness alive, and he gets attacked.
So wait, he goes back in time in both the second movie and the third movie?
No, so the second movie ends with him going into a time portal.
Oh, okay.
The third one starts recapping what happened in the second one, and then you're in after he fell through, which he falls through a time portal. His car is also dropped from this portal, so it like shoots you from the sky, and then you fall to the ground. The car is totally like the frame bends as it hits the ground, and he just hits the ground like no big deal. But like, you just saw the car fall. Like, he totally breaks in half, and then he just lands on fucking stones, and he's just like, oh man, what's happening?
Oh man.
So it's like, obviously it was a really high fall. I don't know.
So
I did write a synopsis if you want to hear it.
Okay, yes, please.
Okay. Maybe this will be a good refresher for you.
Okay.
All right. Can't believe we read the
wrong
one. That's awesome.
Was yours free at least? Because I had to pay for mine. Yeah, it was free. Okay.
Oh, you paid for yours?
Yeah, it was $2 to rent it.
Oh, God.
I can't believe. Not only did I watch the wrong one, but I watched
the worst one.
The worst one.
Okay. Oh my God. All right, here we go. In this side-splitting cult classic, Army of Darkness takes us on a wild ride through time and chaos with Ash Williams, the ultimate accidental hero. When a humble stock boy from S-Mart gets sucked into a time portal, he lands in medieval England. As if working retail wasn't hard enough, now he has to deal with zombies, witches, and an identity crisis to boot. Ash, armed with his trusty shotgun and chainsaw hand, yes, you read that right, must lead a ragtag group of medieval misfits to battle against the undead. And he's not about to let a lack of modern technology, formal training, or his own arrogance get in the way. Get ready for an epic showdown between Ash and the Army of Dead. Will he save the day, or will he accidentally screw things up even more?
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But so, okay. The story is, it says at the beginning, it says an archaeologist uncovered a book in this cabin, and that's why he had to saw his arm off, because he was getting attacked. But like right after you get into this Army of Dead, it's like reminds you of Monty Python and kind of just the funniness of like how things work. Because the first scene is him at a stock, one of those yokes, just like from Highlander. Yeah. But he's tied together with a bunch of other dudes, and they're being taken over to back to this castle, and they're going to get thrown into this pit, and it's Ash, and then all these like medieval guys from another like castle that they've captured. And this is where all the funny lines are, because he's trying to talk to this other medieval guy, and he says, "Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants. You only have you're only leading two things, Jack and shit." But this is they lead this pit. There's this pit in this castle, and they've obviously been having zombies and stuff. And you see one guy go in, and it just sounds like he splashed into water, and then all of a sudden just blood shoots out of the pit, just freaking raining. And then the next guy to go in is Mr. Ash, and he gets down there, and it's like in this water, and there's these like zombies down there, there's like goblins down there, and then they decide that they have these spikes that they're slowly closing, trying to kill him. And there's this wise man that took his saw hand and like kept it because they didn't want him to have weapons, and he throws it down to him, and then he just chainsaws the guy and then pulls himself up, and then he's like, "Oh, I fucking run this place now." He like takes over.
Was that I'm remembering some kind of image of him, the saw tumbling through the air, and then him just like holding his stump up and then it like locking in place or something.
Totally. Yeah, that's exactly what it does.
So at what point, okay, so in the second movie, he does the whole Book of the Dead thing and cuts his hand off, and now he has a chainsaw. And so then at the end of that movie, he's just back to normal store clerk, and he's shelving, and he's shelving boxes with a chainsaw hand, just 9 to 5.
Well, in this end of the second one, he gets to the time portal.
But I thought you said
in the third one, he does, at the end of this Army of Darkness, he does end up back at the S-Mart.
Okay. I thought he was stocking boxes and then got time portaled at work.
No.
Okay.
But that's where he worked in the second one.
Okay.
He went. That's where it gets confusing.
Okay, this is making sense. He survived whatever happened in the second one and immediately got time portal.
Teleport.
Okay.
So, but there is so after he gets out of this pit and like he's eating grapes and stuff, and he's basically sitting in the king's chair. He literally just took over the castle, Arthur's castle. But there's a part where like all of a sudden there's one of these ladies with the clay on her face, and she's possessed zombie, and he shotguns her. And then there's a montage of him, instead of having his chainsaw hand, he has a blacksmith design this giant glove that he can mechanically grip stuff. So he has a hand. And so when he goes back at the end of the movie, he has this giant like metal hand that he has at the S-Mart. And he's telling everybody at the end, he's at the S-Mart telling the story or the tale of all that has happened in this Army of Darkness movie.
Just casually, during a normal shift.
And everyone's just like, what? Well, why did you leave? You could have been king. Why did you leave?
Yeah, I wouldn't believe my weekend, man. I went to a cabin with my girlfriend, and I ended up in fucking 1300s. But barely made it at my ship this morning.
But the whole point of this Army of Darkness is the wise man puts him on a quest to find the book, and he must say the specific phrase, and they call it the necromongrin or something. And he has to go through this forest and go to the graveyard to get the book. But it does the thing, which I assume you had in your first one, where it's like the camera's like weaving through the trees. Mm-hmm. But there's a part where it's chasing him, and it's splitting some of the trees in half as it's going. And then all of a sudden there's one part where it just gets stuck, and they kept it in, and it's just like for like 5 seconds, and then it starts going again.
That's pretty funny.
Funny. But
that's actually in the one that I watched, there was, the zooming through the forest and stuff. And
yeah,
this ghost or spirit or whatever, it was just fucking knocking down these trees. Like that was part of its shtick, was that these super long trees, but that were, I don't know, 10 inches around or something, that it was just knocking those fuckers down. So it sounds like your movie was actually funny.
No, it was very funny because the next part, so like he gets chased by this thing and it's splitting the logs and stuff, and he gets freaked out. So he's running away. He gets to this windmill and he's trying to get in, like the sister. And like he finally gets in and he's like trying to brace himself, and it's like pounding against the door, and finally it goes away. And he's like, I'm safe. But there's this part where he's in this windmill, and it's got a fire, and like he starts a fire, and he's looking at this mirror, and the mirror's like really freaking him out because it's like him, but it's not him when he's looking back. So he shatters it, and then all these pieces fall on the ground. And then all of a sudden, all these broken pieces of glass, there are these little ashes come out of it, like little miniature versions of ash.
I remember that. Yeah.
And they're like tormenting him and stuff. And like they're tripping him, and he hits his face, and they're cutting him, and they're poking him in the ass and stuff. And eventually, like he gets knocked out by them, and he gets tied down, and one of them drops down his throat, and he's like starts beating up on the other ones, but you can still feel the one in its stomach, and he's like, this is super weird. He just takes a boiling thing of like hot water and pours it down his throat, and he thinks he killed it. And then all of a sudden he looks over on his shoulder, and there's an eyeball growing, and then it's this progression of a second ash is growing off him until they start fighting each other in the forest, and he shotguns this thing and then chops it into pieces, and he thinks he's killed it, but it's still talking to him with just a head. And then he's like, yes, I did this. I'm going to go get the Book of the Dead, but he can't remember the phrase. So he just says random shit. And so the whole army comes alive, and guess who's the leader of the army? The mini ash thing that he broke up. It reanimates and puts itself back together, and it's like half of its face is just completely destroyed and stuff. And it's just Ash running back to the castle, and he's like, here's your book. And they're like, did you say the magic words? And he's like, I said some of the syllables and some of the words and stuff. I might have not said it exactly right. And they're like, we're cursed forever. And like half the village leaves. And then he's like, well, I've really messed this up. I'll stay and fight with you guys. But the army of the dead is coming. So I'm going to take my Oldsmobile and we're going to go see what I have in there. I've got some shotgun shells. I've got a chemistry 101 book. So they make bombs out of gunpowder using his chemistry book. And he turns his Oldsmobile into a car that somehow it drives after it's fallen out of the sky, but it also has a giant windmill on it. And so there's just this epic battle of undead versus the dead. And it's just like, it is literally just like 200 skeletons, like doing the skeleton dance.
Okay.
Coming at the castle. And then they are just shooting gunpowder at them and they're all exploding. And it goes to an epic battle between Ash and then the dead Ash one that he cut up and is now the leader of the army. And eventually they kill them all. And then everyone celebrates. And then he gets to go back and tell the story of, fucking everything up. That's the movie, man.
Nice. I think I remember those skeletons too. Were they all kind of stop motion skeletons?
Yep.
Or okay.
Yeah, like
or
right after
something similar.
Right after he messes up saying the words right, he gets the skeletons start coming out of the ground. And it's probably like what you're talking about with the sister with the tree. He gets pinned down and then they start like poking him in the nose and the ears and the just all over. And then eventually he gets out and he runs back. But yeah, man.
Yeah. Sounds like a good one. Wish I would have watched that.
Yeah, it was a little more entertaining. I actually was laughing when I was watching it, so it's too bad.
Yeah. It had to happen one of these times.
Yeah, it's true. Well,
I'm going to rate mine then, and you can rate yours. How about that?
That sounds good. It doesn't sound like I'm going to watch Evil Dead.
Yeah. This is the Ascension 10 podcast. We rate movies on an 11-point scale, Ascension being the worst thing you've ever seen, 11 being the highest thing you've ever seen. I'm going to give Army of Darkness, which I guess is, Evil Dead, which I guess is Army of Darkness 2.5 -1. I'm going to give that a probably a 1.6. I don't ever want to watch that again.
That sounds
too
good.
long.
Yeah.
If it was half as long, I might enjoy it. I might have enjoyed it.
Well, Army of Darkness, I am going to give a 5.1.
Whoa.
So I thought it was entertaining, and I thought it was very funny. It was very campy, but it was very entertaining.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That puts it in the likes of, close to Fifth Element. 13th Floor, a little bit better than 13th Floor. It's kind of right in that middle zone, huh?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Bruce Campbell said, in order to make the chainsaw look like it's always running when it was attached to his hand, that they used to use, they had to use tobacco smoke and just pump it through a tube that was slid down the side of his leg up his shirt and then into it. So
practical effects guys know everything.
But the audio, so they were talking about, they had issues because of how the sets were with the boom mics couldn't be over, just the way the scenes were. because they were doing multicam at the same time. They said usually they would do like a wide one and then they would do a close-up for the close-up shots, but they were doing them both at the same time, and that's why the boom mics couldn't be. And I think that's the issue for the first two. But Bruce Campbell, they put a mic on him, so you can actually hear him a little bit better in Army of Darkness. So they did rectify that, at least for his dialogue. But other than that, yeah,
very nice.
Yeah. The director of this also did he did the first three of these, and then he also did the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Oh, the OG, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty famous.
But this was also Bruce Campbell's. Yeah, he did. He just did the first one. That's the first
Spider-Man's.
But Bruce Campbell, this was the last film he was a leading man in, Army of Darkness.
Yeah. I mean, he's made many cameos in a lot of different stuff, right? Because of all this nonsense. But
I mean, he for Army of Darkness, he's very funny. Like, he does a great job. Like, I highly recommend just watching it because it is funny. A lot of good one-liners.
He's not funny at all in the first one.
Like, it doesn't sound like you can be funny.
Yeah.
I'm curious what the change was, or what was the decision to be like,
I know.
We're going to go totally 180 on this third one.
Yeah.
Well, when it was released in Japan, the movie was called Captain Supermarket.
Nice.
And in Germany, the Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, it was called Dance of the Devils, and Dance of the Devils 2, More Dancing Now. And then Army of Darkness was called Dancing of the Devils 3, Army of Darkness. I don't know why. Just random stuff.
Just lost in translation there.
Yeah. But
well,
I think this was my movie, so I guess.
Yeah.
What do you? What's our next movie for the?
The next movie also comes as a recommendation from Sam, who I mentioned earlier.
Nice.
And this was something we had, I think, put on our internal list last summer or last spring or something, but we're going to watch the movie 65, which is about dinosaurs.
The dinosaur one?
And
that with the what's his face? Adam Driver.
Yep.
Nice.
So, no idea if this is going to be something that's dunkable or not, but
it'll probably be another Black Adam. We're the only two people that like it, and just die on a hill for it.
Yep.
Nice.
Let it be known though that we've gone 2 weeks in a row without giving out an Ascension, because as I'm looking through our document, since episode 27, we gave an Ascension every other episode. So that's half of our show, half of this podcast. It's been every other.
I think that's progress, man.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just really refining our.
We are real film reviewers now.
Yeah,
we've made it.
You know, that one episode where we went back and kind of ranked all of the Ascensions.
Yeah.
I think that kind of put in perspective, like, we've got way too many Ascensions.
But they were all shit, though. I mean, we can.
Beyond White Space still stands to me the worst one.
I don't know. I still think it's In the Name of the King.
That's yeah. That one was at least stupid. I mean, that one's at least funny. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah, but they made 3 of those fuckers. Like,
Beyond White Space. Should we watch the third one?
Wait, were there any other Beyond White Spaces?
Fuck no.
Well, I'm going to find out then.
Well, I think that one came out in 2020, so I don't think they've had time to make another.
That stupid fucking movie. The space slugs or whatever. No idea what white space was after that.
What is white space?
Nobody went beyond it.
That's awesome.
I mean, we can always go back to Steven Seagal movies. I guess that's probably half of the Ascensions we gave out this last quarter.
Oh, God.
Steven Seagal.
Well, there's a moratorium on that, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
No more Seagulls.
Well, I think we're at the end of this episode.
Hopefully this one was okay, since we had to go.
It was an oopsies.
We had to
First timers
provide contributions.
Yep.
Well,
we'll see. Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks for making it this far. If you have, check us out on socials. This is Spenny's job, actually, to plug all this. I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, you can check us on socials on Ascension 210 on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can check us out at ascension210.com, or you can email us at boys@ascension210.com and let us know if you have recommendations, typical days, or any suggestions for Patreon.
Ascension to 10 podcast on YouTube. Please check us out there and subscribe. Hit the like button and whatever, and all that stuff.
Yep.
There's some cool stuff there.
Nice.
Green screen action. Although, looking at Spenny's setup right now, and you're editing this one, right?
Yep.
I don't know how you're going to do that with the fact that like half of the green screen isn't like most of your frame is not green screen.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I'm looking forward to this episode, so please check us out.
We'll put it in post.
I know. I'm amazed. I'm really looking forward to how you're going to do this. And and consider our Patreon. New perks and tiers upcoming.
Yeah. By the time this episode comes out, you'll probably see the new tier.
$11,000. You could support us,
baby.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
As
everybody.
always, he's Jad. I'm Spenny. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to Ascension to 10.